able. Thanks. All right, so I added some points to the agenda based on yesterday's meeting, the UX Sync for the code review group. And today we're discussing the automated behavior of attention requests. And yeah, I added a few things. Kai, you added others before mine. Do you want to go over those first?
I think I just want to get clarity, especially because 15 kicks off in a few days. So your Slack comment was, we're considering at least the automation piece of Blocker to turning things back on. So like confirming that, yes, that's where we're still standing on that.
I think so. I think it's good that we have good first impressions on the feature. It's an interesting, we're in an interesting position because we're kind of iterating behind a feature flag, and the feature flag is now off. And we got a glimpse into what people were experiencing. We had a lot of good feedback. We also had some very specific critical feedback. And I think, for example, the icon, I'm not super worried about that because there's the learnability effect there. And we also noticed that when people used it, and even when they said, like, I clicked it a few times, but then they realized what it was actually doing. It doesn't mean that we should not pay attention to that feedback and not talk about it and maybe improve the icon as we are discussing it now. But I don't think the icon is a blocker as much as this, because the icon, if we change it, it will still be there and people will still know what it is for. An automated behavior is much more obscure, it's hidden. So if we change it, it's not immediately clear for users. So I think if we have the opportunity to learn from that quick feedback and iterate behind the feature flag and then release it well or improved, I think we should take that chance. Does that answer your? Okay, I think it does.
Yeah, I think that takes care of 4 and 5 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, Marcel, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Nope, I think it was super clear. I think the separation of these two concerns is definitely the right one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I posted today something in the icon discussion as well, just to give some more context, that we always anticipated that the icon would be, and even I think the whole feature would involve learning. And that's why we intentionally put the popovers and all of that. The icon in solution validation, 16 participants, GitLab and non-GitLab users, they didn't have any issues with the icon that we tested, which is not the icon that was released in the end, but it's still the chevron. But anyway, you can look at the icon discussion later. So yeah, I'm not worried about that right now. So let's talk about the automated behavior. And I put a proposal there, which is basically to remove certain aspects of the attention requests. And I think it is better for us to, do two things. So one of them is to learn more about which and raise the confidence on which automated behaviors we believe are the right ones to have. So I'm not saying no to any automated behavior, but I do think that there is some gray area for certain of those automated behaviors that we have today, which are the ones that I have there. Then we have that one, I open a merge request. I don't know who added that one, but I think it's me. Okay, yeah. I think it's similar to, the one before it, right? So because today when you open a merge request, if you're not assigned to your own merge request, or if you're not a reviewer of your own merge request, you don't get an attention request. So it's, yeah, I think it's kind of a detail of when you add yourself as an assignee or reviewer. This is, for example, when you open a merge request, don't automatically add an attention request for myself, basically. And so, sorry, just coming back to what I was saying. So I think there's two things we can do there. One is learning and raising the confidence on which behaviors we are able to automate. And yesterday, Kai, we were talking about it, the UXing. And the first thing that came to mind was, okay, we can, of course, have feedback in the issues, but that feedback is always, how do you call it? It's not like we don't reach out to the users. The users have to go out of their way to get us the feedback and bring us their feedback. I also mentioned doing user interviews, which I think is something that this feature needs, is talking with users and seeing them going through their usual flow with real merge requests. But other than that, one other thing that I thought about was just tracking the events that happen before and after attention requests are made, right? So if we notice that, for example, and this is just a very rough example, if we notice that people are requesting the attention of other people, and right after that, the subsequent event or the next two events, you have them requesting their own attention, and we can see a lot of activity in that, in those two events in sequence, that means that there's maybe something for us to investigate there and consider to be an automated behavior. And this is just an example. We could see other things. So I think there are many ways that we can approach this to gain more confidence. And then the second step, which I wrote in point 7, is to try to make that handover more visible and explicit. And that would be to bake in the handover piece in the review feature. That, again, that's just a rough example. So that's yet another thing that we can do. And in that way, it would be, if we had some automated behaviors, it would be more visible. So for example, if I'm submitting a review, we could automatically in this, so let me share my screen so you can all see what I'm talking about. So here, if we automatically remove the attention request from the reviewer when they are submitting a review, this would be immediately visible for them that we're making that decision for them, right? So we're making that explicit before they submit the review. And today that is not explicit, right? If you click, you have to see that your icon changes and that you've lost the attention request when you request attention from someone else, or if you add a reviewer. Yeah, I'll stop there for your comments.
I have added 2 smaller points here, why I think this is a larger problem than it might even need to be if we had other points. The first one is we have trained our users to not trust the real-time information that we show on our merge request on our issues page. If you use quick actions, for example, if you change the assignees, nothing happens. We have had these kinds of behavior so much in our UI and our UX that users have real trouble seeing whether an action they perform will have real-time implications. And I think any kind of automation relies a lot on giving this kind of feedback. And this is the second point. The only feedback they get for performing the action and then knowing that it has changed the attention request is the change of the color. And that's in an area that they are not currently looking towards. It's an area where we have trained users that not all of our actions actually perform real-time updates. And it's also not really standing out. It's not a highlight. We don't like give you an explosion. We don't give you like some kind of blinking. There's nothing that really points the user towards you have performed action X. This is one of the outcomes. And I think this is why this automation behavior that's in general, as the behavior itself, not 100% clear, us not being clear enough about visualizing the feedback and visualizing the impact of that action, and users already being not trusting of that information that we give in the UI. I think these are the two major supporting aspects why this is a larger problem.
Yeah, I posted there a possible mitigation to that of giving feedback other than the visual feedback, which is something that interestingly, we already predicted that when we were designing the feature, right? We knew that just changing the color of the icon when you click on it, or toggling those different icons, filled or unfilled, we knew that wasn't enough. So we added the toast messages saying you've requested attention from this person, or you removed the attention request from that person. So one possible mitigation to that is if we have certain automated behaviors, is to let people know, like, we did this on your behalf. I think that might provide some reassurance to users. Although I don't think we should rely on that as the solution. I think it's good, but it's not, I think, the best way to communicate with users.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement for the automations that we are confident about. But on the ones where we are not confident about, and where we might even see too many cases where it leads to negative consequences, I think there it's not actually solving the real problem of that. I wasn't in the code review UX thing yesterday, so I don't know how much of each of these automations was already discussed. I don't know if you had already gone into each one of them and talked through them.
Those specific ones that are highlighted above.
Yes.
We kind of did, but I'm happy to go over them one by one if you think that might be beneficial. Okay.
I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter. And like that sounds dismissive, and I'm trying not to be dismissive. I think like I will say I had I think my role in this is not to question the UX decision being made. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't think my role is to question the decision being made. So I think I think you've looked at what our possibilities and alternatives are, and this is sort of the best we can do in order to do what we want to do. And so I think that's why I wanted to make sure we started with whether or not it was a blocker, because that sort of tells me what I need to make sure we take care of and handle. So I think if that's the decision that UX wants to make, then I think my job is to support that and make sure that we take care of that, and that this is what we want it to be. So I think yeah, I mean, I think it sort of is what it is at this point. Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I think, part of you is sad, as also I'm kind of sad that it seems like we had progressed further with the feature, and now we're reducing what we believe to be the usefulness of the feature. And I think above all, I think what we should be focused on is how confident we are in certain things, and continuously learning from what we see users doing, or what we validate their feedback. And I think we're learning from this, even though it means that, hey, maybe we're going to postpone this little part. And yeah, we might be sad because of that, but who knows if in the future we will add those things again. And I think you should definitely share your opinion and question everything that we do. I feel that I can question what you do, so I think you should feel like you can question what I believe in, and because that will make our work stronger. Although in the end, there's only one DRI, I guess. So, but we should be comfortable with it.
Yeah, I don't think it's that I can't question it. I think in a longer time, so, and I think, and I will say, so I think some of this is like artificial pressure, but I think if we had a longer window with people being not going on leave and 15 not starting in 4 days, I think we would have different conversations. I think the problem is we're up against a different sort of timeline than anyone would like if we want to make a release. And I think not making a release to do this research isn't the right decision, right? To like go through this and sort of continue to iterate without turning things back on is not the right decision. So I think that sort of is why it's not really worth, maybe not worth, but like is I think that's sort of the added pressure and challenge here, is that's why this feels like a step back, because it feels like we're going to release with I'll say two things. It feels like we're going to release with a lot less than we would have. And what's more interesting is the only reason we're sort of in a position to not turn on the feature flag is because of a production incident related to the feature, right? Like I think I would
it's a sign. No, I'm kidding.
I would be curious, like I mean, I think if as like hypotheticals we play this out, but like if we hadn't turned the feature flag off, I think we would not jump to removing all of these things. We might have picked sort of the one that got a lot of pressure, which I think the one that got a lot of pressure, or that a lot of people sort of were confused about, was like when I add myself as an assignee when I first create the merge request. I'm not sure any of these other ones were really like questioned by people. In fact, like I'm not sure there's any comments that like question these other automated removal behaviors. And you're talking about like basically you've given, I don't know, the feature was on for 3.5 days. Like in 3.5 days, there sort of wasn't a lot of question about anything. There was only the biggest one was sort of like, I add myself as a signing reviewer. And I think what we would have done had we not had to turn the feature off is we would have just been like, well, let's get rid of that one. There seems to be like some contention. We probably wouldn't have gotten rid of the rest of these. We knew this like assignee reviewer one that Paul ran into as an open source contributor, like that one, we knew there was some like potential friction there, but like it wasn't clear how often that would occur, like teams. And like, I think we would have defaulted to a position of learning with the behavior in place of what we thought was the correct behavior. And instead what we're doing, because sort of like unrelated thing, we're sort of stripping some value out of the feature in a process to learn like over a longer period of time. That's actually going to be significantly, I think, harder for us to learn how people respond, because people are not going to like tell us, right? Like it's not like we've had reviewers for a year and a half. I don't even know, a long time. And I'm not sure there's a single issue about automating behavior behind that. Right? No one's asked for it. And so no one's going to continue to ask for those things, because that's not something that people are going to ask for. Right? And our ability to instrument and do telemetry on event-based things that happen is pitiful on a good day. I don't know, like we don't have a good way to do that either. Right? So like, I think that is, to me, what's maybe more concerning is that feels like we're gutting it. Sure, we have ideas and a plan. Those are much harder to learn than like something in the product that rubs people the wrong way. And not that maybe rubbing people the wrong way is the right way to get feedback, but it is at GitLab, it is a better sensing mechanism than other things we have, just because of the way that this works. And so I think we're not going to get any of the feedback around these things. I think we're not going to have a good way to instrument it. And so I think we're like a year from now, like it wouldn't surprise me if none of these are back in the product. And so that, I think that's like I think that's the challenging proposition for me to sit with, is that like, if that's what we want to do, because we think these things are so damaging, that's fine. I don't necessarily agree that they're so damaging, but I think that's sort of the spot that I'm in, is that I think you and I, in a vacuum, let's just like take everyone, I think you and I both agree that these are like automations that make sense based on the way that you and I have thought about how code review works inside of GitLab and inside of the merge request, right? They wouldn't exist if you and I hadn't thought that like, this is the flow that we want. Yeah. And so like, now it's weird to be in a spot where you're like, I'm not sure these are the right things anymore.
So okay. So let's
also do have a hard stop in 3 minutes because it's a customer call. So like, just clearing that up in case we have to like run to another meeting later today or tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just very quickly just talk about 2 points. So one is the one you said that seems to be the one that caused the most frustration or confusion, is when you're adding yourself, it would add an attention request, which may or may not be desirable. And then there's that other one, which, in my opinion, which is the, when you add someone as a reviewer or as an assignee, or when you request someone's attention, so basically when you are handing it over to someone else, it would remove the attention request automatically. And I think that is how it should work, right? Because that's, even if you look down at the submit review, like that very rough mockup that has so many controls, but there's the handover process there. And that's what we want to happen, is you finish your review, you're done, you hand over the ball to someone else. And so we're doing that automatically. And in that point of, I hand this over and automatically it removes my attention request. But I think there are 2 aspects. One is the visibility, which is what Marcel was talking about, is that we don't have any feedback other than the visual feedback. And also people don't rely a lot or trust, the real timeness or lack of real timeness of our product. But then the other perspective is that some people are frustrated that it removes their attention request because they're not done, right? They could just be adding someone as a reviewer, but they're still in the process of doing their review. And I think my assumption is that is a minority of the cases, but I don't have any way to prove that now, right? So yeah, so what I probably would do now is remove the first, so the one that is when you add yourself as an assignee or reviewer. So I'm going to bold that one. And then for the ones that I'm going to mark in italic, I would probably right now improve the text of the toast message so that when you request someone's attention or when you add someone as an assignee or reviewer, we explain that immediately to you so that you know what's happening and that you learn that behavior if it's something that usually conflicts with what you do. Yeah, I'll stop there because there's only 1 minute left.
Let me ask you, so I agree with the real timeness. I also think like real time is consistently a problem. And so like, that's sort of I don't want to say a cop out, but it feels like a bit of a cop out to say like, oh, because we don't have real time, you can't add other features to GitLab. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that because we don't have them in GitLab, we do them in different ways. So I think like that's, is your stance, okay, so are you saying like the one that you bolded, let's get rid of that. The two that you italicized, let's add toast messages for those. And like, instead of removing that behavior, we keep the behavior, but we add a toast message, which we do for other things. Like in the merge request, we've started like, there's been a few instances lately where we've added more toast messages to like, hey, this thing happened. Are you saying that instead of removing it, we could opt to add a toast message? And then the approve the merge request one, like, I think we leave, right? Like if we're going to change this, is like that a viable path to like changing it versus sort of gutting the automation out of it? Or are you saying let's gut the automation and like try and do all these things over the next year and then like maybe come back to it?
Putting it that way. No, I'm saying that this could be a possible way for us to, could be a good compromise. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay, I need to jump. Would you mind either updating the one issue or creating a new issue with what you think is like the proposal? And then we can back and forth there if we need to. And then if, yeah, we'll go from there.
Sure, I'll do that.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Cool.
Thank you. Goodbye.